started in 2 schools. Figured if we could make it work in total opposites like Mountain Brook and Glen Iris, we could make it work. Then we expanded to 6 schools. Okay, Bryant, which was one of our 6 schools at that time, I believe they were in that original 6, but we had 6 schools from around the state. Then we started doing a control and intervention program where we took kids and we maxed them up. We had our intervention schools that were doing the program, our control schools that were not doing the program. We had them take knowledge test, we had them take behavior test, and we had them take the PACER test to see if the kids in Hill performed better after a year than the kids that were not engaged in Hill. And as most of you know, the PACER is one of the cardio tests that is recommended to use by the State Department. You can also use the mile run if that's what you prefer. We just use the PACER. So this is what we found. PACER scores at the pre-test and post-test level. Our yellow line is our comparison schools. Those were the schools that were not doing Hill. Our gray line is the intervention schools. Look at how the PACER scores increased for the kids in Hill. Now, why is the PACER score so important? What is the PACER score as a measure of? Cardiovascular. We know we look at that metabolic syndrome. Cardiovascular. So we knew that we were making a difference with those kids. Now these are the 2 slides that I like the best. We had a group of children, when we did the analysis, we looked at our overweight and obese kids. Kids, according to CDCs that are in the overweight category, they're children that fit in the 85 to 95 percentile with BMI. Kids that are at the 95th percentile and above, they're in the obese category. Okay? So we thought it would be interesting to look to see how the PACER changed for those kids who were either at risk of obesity or already in that obese category. These are our overweight kids. Again, gray line, yellow line comparison, gray line intervention. Look at how our kids in Hill continue to increase even though they were in that 85th to 95th percentile. So again, we know that we may not have had an impact on their weight because we're not a weight program, but we did have an impact on their cardiovascular fitness. And then if you look at this one, it's even more dramatic. These are our kids who were in the 95th percentile and above. They were morbidly obese, according to CDCs. The kids in the Hill program increased their PACER score. The kids in the intervention, theirs actually went down. So that is powerful. That even with the children who are in the worst physical condition, from an obesity standpoint, we can have a positive impact on their cardiovascular fitness. And even though they couldn't do near the laps, if you remember from the first slide, like at the beginning, the average lap that these kids could do was 13. And even at the end, they still weren't breaking it a lot. They can only do 16. But that's still an increase for them, whereas this other group went down. We did a post-test knowledge, because knowledge is a very strong component of what we teach. And again, notice how the knowledge scores went up more significantly for our kids than they did just from kids in a regular physical education class not having Hill, or from what was being taught in the classroom related to nutrition and physical activity. So again, we proved that it would work, because we knew if we couldn't prove this, that people would not help us to fund this. So you said you don't know very much about Hill at the beginning, but do you know how much Hill is going to cost your school? Anybody? Zero. Okay? And we knew if we were going to be able to get grants to support this program, we had to prove that it was working. And so that's why we went to that trouble to do all of that assessment, to be sure that when we went and we talked to Blue Cross and we talked to the Beverage Association and we talked to all these different people, that we have facts that say, yes, we are doing this. And we do assessments every year We have a select group that we assess every year. We rotate it around the state. So we're constantly doing these kinds of assessments to show that we are making the difference that we say that we're making. So what makes us different? I've told you why it's important to do it. Let's take a break. Okay, that's what makes us different.